And I'm Luca Derry.
And this is our presentation for the Native Language and History website.
So, for project overview, our goal going into this was to create a place where the tribes of Montana could share history, culture, and language online, as that's something that tends to be lacking in Native communities. We came into this focusing a lot more on the language, but as we met with our client and updated our goals, we came to focus a lot more on the history and culture with the goal of adding language later once we get the resources.
For the teamwork end, I handled the development of the front end per the client request with things such as logos, pictures, styling, as well as the playwright testing side of things. And I had a part in the contacting potential clients initially for the project.
On my end, I handled the initial site setup and adjusting our base to fit our goals. I also handled back-end implementation and bug fixing. I took Scrum notes and did the sprint reports. For the more uh, historical side of it, I did research on treaties and history. I did write-ups, and I also did a lot of the cultural integration.
For the design pattern, we implemented the observer pattern into the back end for our stories page. We used a simple JavaScript for filtering each story that is submitted.
Okay.
On the landing page, we have preserving, learning, honoring Montana's first languages. We have a picture of the 7 tribal nations that are within Montana, the reservations that are within Montana, along with status report of how many indigenous people reside within Montana, the 12 tribal nations, 7 reservations, 7 colleges, and 7+ living languages. For the buttons here, we implemented the links to the Learn and Translate, History and Treaties, and Story features. For the Learn and Translate, I handled the logo development as well as the box styling for each tribal nation. Each box is in development. We did have some restrictions based on finances and resources. In the future, we would like to implement language hubs for each tribal nation so people will be able to view things like vocabulary, stories, as well as tribal history.
So for the history page, um, we implemented different sections on all of the different nations within Montana. Each section has a little section, a little blurb about the tribe and the nation, as well as important treaties, uh, as well as little read more sections that will be added to as more history is submitted, more people are involved in this project. Um, we also have a little section discussing the issue of treaty rights and the way that they affect not only the history but also the very modern laws that involve interactions between the US and sovereign nations. Um, and then we also here have information on indigenous territories. So this is a interactive map where you can see all of the. Oh, that's not what I meant to do. Where you can see different nations. Apologies, we're doing this on a trackpad and it's a little bit janky.
Okay, so for this part, you just enter your Crow language, and you basically filter out every tribe until you get to your own tribe. Oh, I'm sorry. And and basically that's how we see pre-contact treaty land.
Yes, so this map is an important resource for those who want to research the history of each tribe and, where people were before reservations. Um, and finally, the stories page. So, the stories page is a hub for where people of any tribe can submit different stories, different things. So going to community submissions, these are the current uploads. All of these are currently tests. But as you can see, as after somebody submits a submission and it's approved by whoever's moderating the page, you can go to here and check out the full story. So people will upload different files, different photos, and you can check these things out. Each thing will have a description that will be attached to it, and you can filter them by stuff like tribe. You can sort them by tribe, all these different things. And then going back to the stories page, if you want to upload something, you go here and you click on share your story. So as you can see on the stories page, there's just a Google form to submit, which was used as our client is not particularly tech savvy, and is mostly familiar with Google, and that's what she seemed to be comfortable with. So for each thing, you enter your full name and then a tribal affiliation. For now, we're just going to do NA because this isn't an official thing. And then you can choose from a category. And then, so this is the brief description of the content that will be shown once the user item has been submitted. So if you just put in test and then add a file, I'm not going to add anything right now just for reasons, but that way, this is how you upload something. Once you upload this form, the form will be then sent into a Google sheet where anyone in charge of the page can look it over, make sure it's safe and suitable to be uploaded, and then approved. And then once it's approved, it'll show up here on the community submissions page. So this is our user guide. It's basically just a small little page that explains how to operate the back end of the page by checking the Google Docs or Google Sheet, making sure everything's fitting, and then it also discusses how to adjust the Google script that this works with. So basically, it just gives you a brief little breakdown of the code, explains what each part does, and then what you can do to adjust the Google script if you want to, add a new category, stuff like that.
And for the developer docs, we have basically our site structure features for the homepage, text that describes how to go about navigating through there. We have the learn part too as well, with some features that we added but we also took out per client requests. So that is why you see them here. Our future plans that we also have for the README file are basically here with added vocabulary, audio, phrases, and translation tools for each nation. For the history part, I also gave us a in-depth explanation of the treaties that were added. And for the stories, you have this overview, how to contribute and how to share your story, and as well as our tech stack and our also devlogs that we had throughout the project, from starting from 219 to 327, which is basically when we stopped implementing our features after we had a meeting with the client. Here we have our tech stack, which is HTML5, CSS, and a little bit of Java with vanilla JavaScript for the navigation features, as well as Google Sheets and scripts for the community stories that were deployed on Vercel.
So we've been over our included features. Real quick, I just want to touch on project limitations. We went into this wanting to focus on language, but a lot of the issues we came into is that there simply isn't any resources online for native languages. And so because of that, we kind of had to pivot because, as you saw with our hubs, while we would love to have a website purely focused on language, that requires, a lot of research, a lot of interviews, a lot of resources that we just don't have at the time. So once those resources are gathered, we would love to implement more stuff for hubs, but currently we just don't have the resources to do that. There's also the choice to use Google Forms and Google Scripts instead of something like a database. We would have preferred to use a database, quite honestly. However, our client was apprehensive, and as such, we decided to use Google Sheets and Google Scripts because it's something she's familiar with, and something that she can learn fairly easily. Um, and then, as you saw, where to access documentation, our developer docs are on our GitHub, and our user docs are linked on the site. But yeah, thank you for listening.
Yep, thank you.
Also, real quick, unrelated, I apologize for my voice. I am sick right now.
Then just go up.